Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Welcome. Your good name again, Spandana, right? Okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And anyone else here for the first time? Oh, yeah. Welcome, Uncle. Your good name?
Vyas Pandey.
Vyas Pandey. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we'll get started with our session for today. So today's topic is reviving eternal sweet relationship with God. So we'll begin with a brief recap of whatever we have discussed so far, especially the last two sessions. The first 5 sessions were about us as happiness-seeking beings who are somehow caught up in a predicament where we are unable to really be happy all the time, though we would like to be happy. And in this world, we work under certain laws like the 3 modes of material nature. And then there are the laws of karma that govern us. So those were the first 5 sessions. And now we are going upward. So our approach is bottom up. First beginning with our situation in this world and now going higher and higher. Going toward the absolute truth, the absolute source of everything. So the last 2 sessions, 6th and 7th, we began our journey upward, inquiring into the ultimate source of everything. We spoke a little bit about God and God as the supreme cause of all causes, the why behind all whys. So we'll do a brief recap of just the last 2 sessions. And we'll do it in the form of some quiz kind of questions, which will be more interactive rather than just me speaking. Okay, so the first question is, which of the following is aligned with the Gita's perspective? First, this material world is the ultimate reality and the be-all and end-all. Second, would someone like to read? Vikasji, do you want to?
This material world is our real home.
But someone else?
Everything, everything is an illusion, and we have no home at all.
Next one.
Yeah, I can read. So this material world is just a reflection of the Atma's real home.
And Spandana, you want to read?
The Atma is a resident of the spiritual world or Vaikuntha.
So now, multiple options could be correct. Which of them do you think are correct?
Last
There are
two. Last two. Last two.
last 2. Does everyone say last 2? Okay. Why did we reject the first 3? That's not what the Gita is telling us. The first option is, does it resonate with any type of theories that we study in this world? Yeah, basically the atheistic philosophies. That this world is the all in all. Our existence is just composed of a bunch of chemicals, some electrochemical signals moving through the neurons, and that's what constitutes our existence. Then, the first 2 are those type of theories. Then the third one is sab maya hai, everything is illusion. Our goal is to annihilate everything and annihilate our complete existence. The Gita is not speaking about any of these three. What the Gita says is this material realm we are currently living in, it's a reflection of our real home. In this material world, we may have a home, but a place where we can die anytime. That's the reality of this material world. One verse in Bhagavatam says, Sarvato Mrityu. We are surrounded by death all around us. Anytime one may die. Such a place cannot be our real home. So, what is the real home then for the Atma? For us, the spiritual beings. So this material world, it's like a reflection. It looks like a real home, but it's not the real stuff. So reflection looks like something real, but it's not the real thing. And then the Gita goes on to say that we do have a real home where existence is permanent. There's no death. It's a world of deathlessness. And what is that? It's the spiritual world, also known as Vaikuntha, the abode of God, the place where we live with God. Then, next question. Is atheism really more scientific and rational compared to theism? Would someone like to shed some light on this?
It's another belief. It's another. It's also a belief.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that's also a belief, actually. Atheism may blame theism as blind belief or just faith in something. One should be rational, man. One should be empirical. However, if we see, atheism also boils down to faith in some millions of years of random reaction. So it's also a form of faith, actually. As far as science is concerned, it's just a neutral field that deals with manipulation of matter and creating some amenities out of it. Now, almost everyone is enamored by science and its innovations. And somehow atheism does a good job of showing that science is on our side. We are scientific. Theism is unscientific. But actually, that's not the case. If at all any one of us lands up in an argument with an atheist, we may not be able to convince them, but at least we can show one point that, hey, what you believe in is also a type of faith. That's at least a way of crippling their arguments. Anyways, we are not getting into arguments with anyone, but just in case we land up, at least we can make this point that what you think is also, it's not something scientific or rational. It's also a type of faith. Now, we as practitioners of Bhagavad Gita, we don't reject science. We respect it, but we consider it a lower form of knowledge. Science has given us many nice things. It is because of science that we are able to have all this technology, slideshow, this speaker, iPhone, Android phone, WhatsApp, when we message you about this course. We respect science, but we consider it a lower form of knowledge. Then what is a higher form of knowledge? Spiritual knowledge. Science may tell us how we can make a living, but spiritual science tells us how we can make a life. Science may tell us how we can move about in this world, get some things done, but spiritual science tells us why life at all, why live at all, why do we have this life at all? That's what spiritual science is. Now, another question based on our previous session. We discussed another definition of dharma in the previous session. Does someone recall? Serving is our dharma. But what's the definition of dharma? Duty in one sense, but there's something more, something that cannot be, an inherent characteristic that cannot be separated from us. Like the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. Any white powder that's not sweet cannot be called sugar. So similarly, the dharma of Atma is seva, service. And when we are not in our natural state, by the way, so you have already given the answer, but still, which of the following would you say is the dharma of the Atma? First one, to watch Bollywood movies. Second, to become a politician. Third, to love and serve Paramatma, our God. And fourth, to get at least 1 million followers on Instagram. So, what would you say? Quite obvious, right? The third one. So, that's the dharma of the soul or Atma. An inherent characteristic of the Atma that cannot be separated from it. And when the Atma is not engaged in its real dharma, that's like an unnatural position for the Atma. It's like a fish being taken out of water. When a fish is taken out of water, no matter what is offered to that fish, any amount of money, amenities, a beautiful female fish, if it's a male fish, and vice versa. No matter what is offered to that fish, it cannot be happy. When we are in an unnatural state, that cannot make us happy in any way. So the natural state for the Atma is to be with Paramatma and to serve Paramatma, serve God, love God. But now one question may come up: is God an exploitative master or exploitative parent who just makes us work hard? We will see that. Who is probably running some factory and making us work really hard there. God is a wonderful, loving, the most loving and lovable friend. That is God. Then, which of the following is true about the relationship between us as the Atmas and the Param Atma or the Supreme Atma or God? Would someone like to read? Risha, do you want to?
We are tiny, infinite, simple part of the supreme whole, Paramatma or God.
Do you want to read? Someone? Okay. Saurabh. The next one.
We are exactly the same as God in quality as well as the quantity as well as quality. There is no difference at all.
Raviji, you want to read the next?
We are qualitatively like God, just like a drop from the ocean is qualitatively like the entire ocean.
Yeah. So which of these options or one particular option do you think is correct? Or there could be multiple correct answers.
1 and 3.
1 and 3. Wonderful. Yeah, that's the correct answer. We are tiny parts of God, like God, but we are a part of the whole. We are also just like we are a conscious being with thinking, feeling, willing. God also, is a wonderful conscious being, but much more than us. God is if we think in terms of quantity, then God is infinite, whereas we are infinitesimal, tiny, and we are parts of God. So we are qualitatively like God, just like a drop taken from the ocean is qualitatively like the entire ocean, but still it's tiny, whereas the ocean is huge. So that's how our connection with God is. Now, in what state are we, the Atmas, most happy? Does someone remember from the previous sessions? We also discussed some part of this right now. When we are with Paramatma, with God, and loving God, serving God. Service. Seva to God. Yes, wonderful. Please feel free to sit on the sofa. Welcome. What's your good name, ma'am? Looks like you're here for the first time.
Yeah. Shweta.
Shweta. Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, when our relationship with God is like that of a child with a parent. A child, when separated from its parent, it's not a natural state for the child. But when united with the parent, the child is very happy. So similarly, the happiest situation for the Atma, for the soul, is to be with the Param Atma, with God. And when that is not the case, when we are separated from God, which is our situation in this world, no matter where we look for happiness, the key for happiness, it doesn't satisfy us. It's something like this. One of my teachers gave this example. Suppose we lose a key somewhere, and we happen to lose it in a dark room. But then we are searching for it in a well-lit room, say this room. Suppose there's another room where we lost our key and it's dark in that room, but this room is well-lit with many lights. And suppose I'm searching for that key in this room, hoping against hope that I'll find it here. What do you think? Is it a very intelligent thing to do? I'm never going to find it here. Now, if somebody asks me, why are you looking for it here if you lost it there? And if I say, well, I cannot see in that place. This is the only thing I can see. So this is the only place where I can search for it. But that's not a very intelligent thing to do. Similar is our situation in this world. Because we are disconnected from that supreme oceanic spiritual bliss of being connected with God, we have lost access to it. It is still accessible for us. We just have to make our choices accordingly. But because we have lost that, we are disconnected from that, we are somehow looking for happiness in this material realm, somehow trying to squeeze out happiness, hoping against hope that temporary things of this world will make us happy. So that is like looking for that lost key in a place where it's not. So similarly, oceanic happiness, which we are all looking for as Atmas, as the scriptures inform us, is not available on this material platform, in this temporary realm of matter. Now, one question based on previous session. We discussed that there are no limitations or laws acting on God. Why then does God have to act at all? We considered this example. We asked everyone to contemplate for some time. If you had unlimited resources and no constraints at all, nobody is watching you, nobody higher than you controlling you. If that was the situation, what would you do? We got many nice answers, but all of it revolved around this one central theme. We would just be happy. We would try to be joyful. We would enjoy, in one sense. So, what do you think? Why does God act then?
That's all temporary happiness. That's all temporary happiness. The one with when the limitation and enjoy the material facts.
Yeah, that's in this material realm, but we are talking about the spiritual realm. In this material realm, our actions and God's actions are different because we act under some obligations. If we don't act, if we don't run around in this world, if we don't get tasks done, it threatens our existence. We have to feed our bellies with food. We need food, we need water, we need some place to sleep. If we don't act in this world, we are threatened by death. So in this world, we act under some obligations. But God has no limitations or obligations that make him act. Why then does God act? So,
For the love of his devotees.
for the love of his devotees, yeah, wonderful. And to expand joy for himself as well as for all God's children. And that is what is called Leela. Leela means not any ordinary action. Leela means a pleasurable action, which is done just for expanding joy. There's no purpose to be achieved out of it, except to expand joy. And that is what God's actions are like. So Now, our eternal existence as the Atma is solely for the purpose of giving joy and happiness to God. And in doing so, there's supreme happiness even for us. And in fact, God's expanding of joy is not selfish or exploitative in any way. In fact, scriptures inform us that God has enabled us, the Atmas, to experience at least as much joy as He Himself does. And in fact, very often, even more joy. So, yeah, that's how wonderful our relationship with God is. That's how sweet it is. Now, we also discussed, this question again based on the last session. So, do you think Atmas have a spontaneous attraction for God? Yeah, does someone remember?
Based on the 6 qualities that you mentioned.
Wonderful.
Your automatically mentioned.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Pavanji. So we saw, yes, the Atmas do all spontaneously feel attracted to the Param Atma, Supreme Atma, God. In fact, it's not a relative attraction. The attractions of this world, they are relative. No matter how beautiful a woman may be, a dog is not going to be attracted to her. And no matter how handsome, influential, and desirable a man may be, for a bitch, female dog, a man is not going to be attractive. So, similarly, but however, the attraction that the Atmas have for the Paramatma is spontaneous. It's not relative and it's not temporary. So, in this context, we saw, as Pavanji was saying, there are 6 qualities. Strength, we see a strong person with strength. Whoever has strength in this world, it's an attractive quality. Then one of these represents fame, the other represents wealth. I don't know which one represents what. I don't even know who that person is. I just copied this slide from my teacher's presentation. So yeah, suppose this represents wealth. Somebody who has a lot of wealth in this world, that's also attractive to other living entities. Then there's beauty, physical beauty. When somebody has that, it's attractive for other living entities. Then there's intelligence. Who is that gentleman? Albert Einstein, yeah. When someone has intelligence, there's intelligence that's attractive for others. Then this represents fame, I think. Michael Jackson, fame, great fame. When somebody has a lot of fame, that's attractive. And then this represents renunciation. It's slightly different from the other 5, but renunciation is also one quality. When somebody has that, when we see somebody is detached and renounced, living entities feel attraction toward somebody who possesses this quality of renunciation. Now, God is someone who has all these and in unlimited quantities and all the time, not temporarily. And therefore, there's one particular word describing God, a definition given by Parashar Muni, the father of, whose father was Parashar Muni? Does someone know? Sorry? Yeah, yes. Thank you. So, Parashar Muni was the father of Ved Vyas. He gave this definition of God, and what is that word? Which means somebody who has all these 6 in an unlimited quantity. Van, something ending with Van. Bhagavan, yeah. Somebody who has strength is called Balavan. Van means somebody who possesses something. So Bhagavan is somebody who possesses all these 6 qualities. And therefore, God is all attractive to all living entities. And therefore, one name of God is Krishna. Krishna, the word Krishna itself means all attractive. So, Akarshan or attraction, these words, they come from a common root. Akrisht. Akrisht is one of the Sanskrit words, I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So, Akrisht and Krishna, yeah. they are related. So Krishna means he who is all attractive. So God is all attractive for living beings. So now, next comes this question. This is where we stopped. In the last session, we were planning to cover this topic as well. Why then did we leave such a wonderful Lord and Master? Why then did we leave such a wonderful parent? Why did we leave our real home and come to this material world, which is not our real home? So, the thing is, in our relationship with God, God has given us free will. Free will means the ability to make the right choice as well as the wrong choice. So real love can never be forced. Imagine putting a gun on somebody's head and saying to that person, okay, say to me, I love you. Even if that person says, I love you under a gunpoint, that's a forced statement. Real love cannot be forced. So similarly, God has given us independence, free will. And when we misuse that free will, with our free will, when we don't want to love God, but rather we want to compete with God, or when we envy God, when we become jealous of God, or when we want to play God, when we want to, why is that guy God? Why not me? When this kind of a desire the soul gets, then for such souls, God creates this material realm. This example can make it clear. In fact, 2 examples we can discuss in this context. When living entities desire when they desire to play God, when they want to be God and say, why is Krishna God, why not me? So for such living entities, God very mercifully creates this material realm, which is like a virtual reality. This example can make it clear. So suppose there's a little girl who sees her mother cooking in the kitchen. And she also insists, mother, I also want to cook like you are doing. The mother knows, if I allow my little loved one to cook in the kitchen, she'll either burn the food or burn herself. So the mother doesn't allow her to start cooking in the kitchen. But what does the mother do? She still fulfills that desire. How? When she next goes for shopping, she buys her grocery, regular stuff that she buys, but she buys one more thing, a mini kitchen set, which is which looks like the real kitchen, but it's not the real stuff. So it has all those tiny utensils, and then when she comes home, she gifts it to her little daughter, and she says, darling, come take this. I have this kitchen for you. You can cook as much as you like. And then the daughter becomes so happy. She starts cooking. She starts playing with it. But then she really feels, she gets absorbed in that play. She really feels she is cooking, doing some real stuff. But then after some time, she feels hungry in actuality. And then she goes to her mother, Mother, I'm hungry now. But the mother says, oh, you were cooking right now, isn't it? Why don't you have that? And she insists, no, please give me food. So our search for happiness is something like this. We are caught up in this temporary realm of matter, which God has created for us, which is like a toy-like setup for us to try to be. Yeah, by the way, there are these 3 characteristics of God, which living entities in this material world, they try to imitate. And what are they? Living entities, if we observe around, are trying to be controllers, proprietors, and enjoyers. People controlling living entities in this world, we see they want to control. But those who become spiritually advanced, gradually, they gradually rise above this desire to control others or to control situations. They realize I'm not the controller. Doesn't mean they stop acting in this world. It doesn't mean they stop doing their duties, but they are not after control. In this world, we see control corrupts a living entity. Someone made an interesting statement. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've seen so many living entities who misuse their power to control others when they come in control. History has seen tyrants and so many cruel people. In World War II recently, we saw, of course, we were not there, but history tells us that so many Jews were murdered by one particular person who had so much power and so much control. Then controllership, then proprietorship. Living entities try to be owners of as many things as possible. This is mine, that is mine. But when one becomes spiritually refined, gradually with spiritual knowledge and spiritual practices, one realizes nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to God. And the real purpose of everything is to be used in the service of God. And in that, there's supreme happiness for the entire humanity and for all living beings. So, yeah, controller, proprietor, and enjoyer. Yeah, living entities are trying to enjoy separately from God. And trying to enjoy things of this world, or trying to exploitatively enjoy some other people of this world. So controllership, proprietorship, and enjoyership. Actually, these are the position of God. But when living entities become disconnected from God by misusing their free will, and they come to this material world, which is a toy-like setup given by God for living entities to try out, and until that desire is exhausted. So, yeah, then
Quick question there. I think what is said is when somebody is spiritually advanced, they will lose their ultimate, motive of controlling or proprietorship, but they still have to do their duties. In the process, they might end up doing that.
yeah,
Like
true.
if someone is a spiritually
Father
advanced parent or
parent,
head of the
yes.
company or whatever it is,
Yeah.
they end up doing that, but that's not their goal.
True. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I should have expanded on that statement. When somebody loses that desire to control, they still do their duties. As a father or mother, someone may have to control their child, show some strictness, but it is not out of being a control freak. I want to be a controller. I want to control somebody's life. It is with a service attitude. Okay. So, another example could be given in this context. Suppose there's a prime minister or a president, and his son sees him giving big talks in so many gatherings, and his son sees that, oh, my father is being admired by so many people. Then the son asks the father, oh, I also want to become like you and give talks and so on. Now, of course, the father cannot actually call him on a podium in a public gathering, make him give the speech. So what would the father do? For example, he'll probably create a separate room at home and create a toy-like setup with an artificial podium and some artificial audiences. And the father may make him speak, and the son, for some time, he'll feel like he is acting like his father. But that's not real stuff. So similarly, the Atma can never become the Paramatma, or can never take the position of Paramatma. But the Paramatma, God, Krishna, has very mercifully created this toy-like setup for us. In fact, we are going to see in future slides how God's mercy manifests even in this material realm, which is a toy-like setup for us to play around and to exhaust that desire of trying to play God. God's mercy manifests in 5 ways, even in this material realm. We'll see that in future slides. Here's a beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita, 4th verse of 7th chapter. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu khammano buddhireva cha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritirashtadha. Would someone like to read the translation? Sorry.
Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false egos. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies.
Yeah. So Krishna, these 8, they make up the material energy, as we have discussed in the past. The first 5, earth, water, fire, air, ether, they form our gross body. Mind, intelligence, false ego, they form our subtle body. So even mind is a material thing, though subtle. The mind is not something spiritual. But we, the Atma, are completely separate from all these 8. And Krishna says that in the next verse. 5th verse. Apareyamitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yaedam dharyate jagat. Would someone like to read? Shwetaji, did I get your name correct? Do you want to read this?
Sure. Besides these, O mighty Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature.
So Krishna is saying, this material realm is also his energy. And we, the Atmas, are also his energy. But we are the superior energy. Material energy is inferior to us. Dead matter is definitely inferior to a living force. A living force is intrinsically higher than dead matter. Who do we value more, a living being or some dead object? Certainly a living being. So, yeah, the living force is, Krishna is saying, it's my superior energy. But what is this superior energy of Krishna doing in this world? Krishna is saying they are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So Krishna has himself created this and given us, which is like a toy-like setup for the Atmas to try out, to try enjoying separately from God, to try to be God and see, try it out. Now what happens in this world? Everyone else is also trying to do the same. Everyone thinks, I'm the center. I'm the controller, enjoyer, proprietor. And then what naturally happens when there are so many others, everyone is trying to do this, trying to be God or play God. Nobody may say verbally, I'm trying to be God. But our actions in this world are indicative of that. So, and what do you think happens when everyone around is also trying to do the same? Inevitably, what will it lead to? Clashes in this world, conflicts. And that's the source of all conflicts in this material world. But in the spiritual world, such conflicts do not exist because there is one center. Now, what do you think? What does God mean to most pious people in this world? God is seen as, there are so many pious people in this world, but not everyone is really loving God or trying to love God. So what does God mean to most people? Would someone like to say?
Serving everyone.
So serving everyone, meaning they think that God should be serving everyone.
They would be serving everyone, thinking that everyone is God.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing.
Your friend.
I was looking for something else. Sorry. Friend. Okay, yeah, that's still a higher level of consciousness. But yeah, most pious people, why do they approach God?
To pardon their mistake, or someone who can just pardon their mistake.
Someone who can pardon their mistakes. Yeah, that's wonderful.
For spiritual wisdom.
Those are actually a little more advanced living entities. But if we can see, most living entities see God as an order supplier. I need something, I go to God. Even most pious people in this world. However, God, when somebody becomes more refined and advanced in consciousness, one sees that, oh, God doesn't exist for me. I exist for God. A beginner spirituality may mean God is the fulfiller of my desires. But advanced spirituality means God is the fulfillment of all my desires. So that's what this course, as well as the Gita, is urging us to do, to come from beginner spirituality or ordinary piety. One saint coined this term, materialistic piety or pious materialism. You could put it either way. Meaning piety, but with materialistic goals. So the Gita is urging us to rise above that platform and come to the platform of loving God, which is higher than pious materialism. So most people may see God as an order supplier. And in the previous session, Jyotsna ji had asked one question. To that, I was reminded of one story in connection with that. I would like to share it again right now. So one of my spiritual teachers, we have lots of his talks on online. He's a prolific speaker as well as an author. He lives in Mumbai. Vraj Bihari Prabhu, his name is. He was sharing his childhood experience. When he was studying, maybe 5 to 7 years old, in his class, there was one teacher. Let's say, for example, Mrs. Sharma. She was their teacher, and there were little boys and girls studying under her. And they might be in LKG or whatever. And one day they saw, Vraj Vihari Prabhu saying, they saw that Mrs. Sharma's tummy was growing day by day. And then they realized, they were told, she is pregnant, she is soon going to deliver a child, she is going to have a baby. And then the boys and girls, little boys and girls, they were realizing, oh, what does pregnancy mean? It means some small kid like us is going to take birth again. And then after some days, she went on a leave, Mrs. Sharma, on maternity leave. And then, the boys did not see her for quite some time. So after a few weeks, once the principal came into the classroom, and the principal said, everyone stand up. Okay, let's offer a prayer for Mrs. Sharma. And why? The principal told them, do you remember she was going to have a baby? Unfortunately, she had a miscarriage. She's doing okay, she's safe, but her baby is no more. So everyone offer a prayer for her. And then the boys and girls, little boys and girls, they offered prayers. Now, from this, Vraj Vihari Prabhu, later on in life, he is reflecting. He recalled this and connected it with a spiritual path, with our individual spiritual journeys. How is it connected? Previously, the young kids, they thought that Mrs. Sharma, her only role is she is our teacher. She comes and writes something on the board, teaches us something, makes us go through some boring exams, painful exams, and then corrects our papers. And sometimes she scolds us, punishes us. That's all they thought. Her existence is all about that. But when their consciousness went to a higher level, when they matured a little, the kids realized, oh, Mrs. Sharma also has her personal life. So that's what our teacher realized after that miscarriage. Oh, she also has her personal life. So similarly, in beginner spirituality or in an immature stage of spirituality, one may think that God is just an order supplier. But when one becomes more refined, one realizes that God too has a wonderful personal life. And we are all a part of that. We are all a part of God's Leela. We live with God in God's abode. which is our real home. So, yeah, when one becomes more refined in consciousness and understands God deeper, so one realizes that God has a personal existence beyond this world. And that's the real platform of existence, even for us. In fact, that's our real home, and we too are a part of God's Leela. In the spiritual abode, we have an eternal, sweet relationship with God, which does not decay with time, which does not become boring or hackneyed with time. There's no time factor, in fact, there. Time factor in this material world, it causes death. It moves things around, and big empires come and go. The time factor assembles the bodies of beautiful women and then disassembles them, and assembles the bodies of handsome men and capable men, and then it again dismantles them. But in the spiritual realm, there is no such time factor. So, yeah, we too are a part of this wonderful abode of God and God's Leela. And that is God's inner circle or God's internal energy. Whereas this material world, it also belongs to God, but it is God's outer circle. Created for living entities who don't really created for battery is okay. I hope I'm still audible. So, yeah, we too are a part of this wonderful abode of the Lord. And God is inviting us to his abode. And that's the reason God descends into this world time and again to remind us, come back, my dear children. This is not your real home. This is not the place where you can find real happiness. Come back to me. And God comes to this world and shows us, advertises before us his wonderful leelas to attract us, to charm us, and help us become attracted toward him again. So, yeah. Now, just one quiz question here. So, I think I had mentioned this even in the previous session, but we'll mention it again. So, in a few years ago, one great saint, he's a devotee of Krishna, an African American, but he took to the path of Krishna consciousness. He took to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. He's a full-time sannyasi in ISKCON. Once he went to give a talk to the bright students of IIT Bombay, and he asked them a question which really stumped them. They didn't have an answer to this question. So he asked them, and I'm sure now on the basis of whatever we have discussed so far, I'm sure you'll all be able to give this answer. So he asked them, in selfishness, we apparently gain something, but we still become miserable. But in selflessness, we apparently lose something, but still we become happy and joyful. How is that possible? They had no answer. Because the answer is not there on the material plane. It comes from a different plane, the answer to this. Would someone like to answer why that is the case?
That's our true nature of the
Yeah, it's the true nature of the Atma, to serve someone.
Because a selfless act is in reality is a selfish act for yourself. Because you're really doing it for yourself, for your own happiness. But that you don't come to that realization right away. You come to it later, after some wisdom.
Yeah, that's a profound thought you brought up. selflessness is a form of selfishness, but it's an intelligent and a glorious form of selfishness. It's not really selfishness, but to begin with, one doesn't engage in any service to God because in return, I'm going to be happy because of that. Unconditional love means in the process of serving God, even if I become miserable, I'll still continue to love and serve God. And such love really conquers God. One name of God is Ajit, unconquerable by anything, any force. In fact, all laws, all forces come from God. But God becomes conquered by one thing. Welcome. Are you here for someone? So, yeah, but God becomes conquered by one thing. And what is that? Unconditional love of devotees. To such an extent, God becomes conquered by devotees' love that God also wants to serve such devotees. What did Krishna do for Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? He drove his chariot. Driving is not considered a very prestigious job. But Krishna did it out of so much love for Arjuna. So, yeah. What's the answer? Any other answers? Or any, would you like to paraphrase the answer to this question in other words? Oh, Anilji, did you have a point?
Yeah.
Answer to this?
So I also think that selflessness, like, I think at least what I view is when you see that genuine happiness with others, even if you're losing something, but when you see that genuine happiness and in their eyes that they're appreciating what you did, I think that feeling is somehow long lasting. Like, it's pure joy that you did something for somebody and in the way that genuinely they are appreciating and the joy on their face. Somehow, I think that makes you complete, that makes you feel like, yes, I did something and like, my existence is important actually. I can do something. I'm created by just some forces in nature, but I can still make life better for others. I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, selflessness gives us real joy. Yeah, true. In fact, when you were sharing this thought, one example came to my mind. Once some devotees, they were going for a yatra in India to one holy place. One of my spiritual teachers gave this example. They were in a train and somehow the quantity of prasad they had carried with themselves to sustain them in the journey, because devotees don't take any outside food. They take only food prepared in proper consciousness at home and or in temple kitchen or in a pure environment and offered to God. And they only take prasad basically. Whatever we have after each session is all prasad. So, yeah, they somehow, the quantity of prasad they were carrying turned out to be insufficient. And they called some devotees in some other town, which was on their way, and they requested them. Actually, some other devotees who were not traveling, but they requested for these devotees, and devotees in the town prepared some wonderful prasad and they brought it to the station. And for whatever duration of time the train had stopped there, they started very lovingly feeding all those devotees who were going in the yatra. And then, when the train started, whatever they had brought, they sent with those devotees. So now, at the end of that whole experience, one devotee who was in that yatra, he asked everyone else, he was like a senior monk among them all. He asked them, who do you think was happier? We, when we were taking this prasad, or they, when they were serving this prasad? Everyone unanimously said they looked happier than us. So, yeah, there is joy in doing real service. And the ultimate joy of service is the ultimate fulfillment of service comes when we serve God. And in connection with God, serve all children of God. there is a form of service that is done to children of God, but in forgetfulness of God. That's also a form of selflessness. That also gives some joy, but the highest form of joy is serving God, and in connection with God, all children of God. That's on the spiritual platform. So
Yeah, that explains why you are happier than all of us combined.
I I see you. I'm sure you will make much more spiritual progress than me. In my youth, I had so many ungodly aspirations, but I'm sure you are much more refined humans than me. And I sincerely hope and pray that in this very life you attains spiritual perfection. Okay. Now, how do we attain? How do we revive our relationship with God? This lost relationship. How do we revive this? So we saw that we are all children of God. Each Atma is connected with the Param Atma, the Supreme Atma, with God. And in that sense, we are all siblings. We may not have a bodily blood relationship, but at the spiritual level, we are all siblings. We are brothers and sisters. Why? Because we come from the same parent. We are all children of God. And in that sense, we are connected to each other. Now, here's one question for you. Many of you are parents here. Is it always a pleasant experience taking care of all the needs of a child? Many challenges come up, right? Yeah, we see one mother here almost having a headache. Now, what if there are multiple children? What to say about that? And they may even, what are the kind of challenges that come up when you have more than one child? Does anyone have more than one child here? Of course, Rampriya Prabhu has. Anyone else? Anilji has. Subhashji. Okay. So when you have more than one child, it comes with a totally new set of challenges. We have to make sure they don't fight, they don't, whatever, create so much mess and trouble for each other. Now, can you think of how many children Paramatma has? Everyone in creation is a child of God. Now, do you think that must be burdening God? When ordinary parents, if they have, say, 10 children, difficult to give everyone attention. What to speak of 20 children, 30 children. Can't think of so many children in Kali Yuga, at least. The attention gets divided. We cannot give attention to everyone. For Paramatma, there are so many children, but yet, this is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Let's first recite the Sanskrit verse, and then we will read the translation as well. Please repeat after me, line by line. We will sing. Chetasa sarva karmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhiyogamupashritya Macchitta satatam bhava. Would you like to read? No. Pawanji, you want to read?
In all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me.
Isn't this in complete contrast with the human limitations we saw, where attention gets divided and one may end up getting frustrated as one has more and more children or subordinates. One wants to delegate tasks. one may delegate a task to an elder sibling. Okay, you take care of your younger siblings. But God can make such a promise to all living entities. He is not just saying this to Arjun. Krishna, through Arjun, is speaking to all living entities. And Krishna is saying, in all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So practically in every activity, we can cry out to Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, I am yours. Please show me the right path in this situation. So who but God can make such a promise? And God's love for each one of us is undivided. So one more wonderful characteristic of this sweet relationship we have with God, and that is God has a unique relationship with each and every one of us. So the pleasure that Spandana can give God, I cannot give. The pleasure that I can give God, Karthik ji cannot give. So each one of us can give some unique pleasure to God. So each one of us is important to God. And God cares for each and every soul, each and every Atma. And in the spiritual realm, now in this material world, what does uniqueness lead to? When there are two different minds thinking uniquely, differently, what do you think potentially it leads to? Conflicts and disagreements. But in the spiritual realm, we all, each one of us, have our unique characteristics and our unique ways of dealing with God. But yet, amongst us, there are no clashes, even though we have unique features. Why? Because despite these unique features, we respect and love each other. And what is that factor that helps us love each other as well, besides God? God is the center in the spiritual realm. Everyone loves God, but it doesn't mean we hate each other. We all love each other as well. One important factor that God expects us to do is to love all other children of God as well. So that's why, serving children of God is also a very important activity. So, and what is that underlying principle that helps us love and respect each other? It's that the fact that, this devotee is able to give Krishna this particular type of pleasure and service which I cannot offer. So, although this fact also exists that I can give a certain unique pleasure to God which that other person cannot give, but this fact is not in the foreground of my consciousness. The fact in the foreground of my consciousness is, this other devotee can give this unique pleasure to Krishna, which I cannot give. So this devotee is worthy of my respect and worship. So that's how there's so much love shared even among devotees. And such love, glimpses of such love can be experienced in a spiritual satsang like we have in ISKCON. Devotees share so much love with each other. Kids who come to our ISKCON temples and they almost feel like they have multiple parents. And parents also who are sincere practitioners of teachings of Bhagavad Gita, they treat other children also like their own children. And it's a wonderful setup. This gives us glimpses into how life in Vaikuntha is. How there's so much love shared between devotees and with Krishna in the center. So, is it getting too hot for everyone?
Yeah.
Getting a little hot. I personally felt so. Okay, so what exactly does happen in the spiritual world? We have been talking about Vaikuntha, spiritual world, but what's happening there? Is it an inert place, black and white, no interesting things happening there? It's much more colorful and interesting than this material world. Activities in this material world, they become dull, boring, and hackneyed with time. Though living entities may try to make it attractive and interesting with disco lights and whatever whatever gimmicks living entities may try in this world to somehow squeeze out happiness out of the realm of matter. Somehow it doesn't work. Material pleasures are still boring, dull, hackneyed, and they don't give a lasting joy. But in the spiritual realm, there are wonderful activities happening. God is simply engaged in wonderful leelas or activities that expand joy. And a great saint made a statement: the spiritual world is everything wonderful you can imagine and much more. So Hollywood, Bollywood, they may try to show some movies with a fantastic world. In the recent past, that was one of my last movies I had watched. One movie called Avatar had come in Hollywood more than a decade ago or something. So in that they showed another realm which was wonderful and fascinating. Now the spiritual world is everything wonderful you can imagine with our nice creative human mind, and much more than that. So it's a realm of no limitations. The Atma is very free in the spiritual realm. Even in this material world, the Atma is so active. But the body brings so many limitations upon the Atma. We have to sleep every day. We have to eat, we have to supply fuel to the body. But in the spiritual realm, the Atma, there are no such forces that put limitations on the Atma. The Atma is completely free in the spiritual realm. But free to do what? Free to have loving exchanges with Krishna, with God, and loving exchanges with each other. So, and the spiritual realm is a place where, like we are sitting right now, we can even sit with God, we can dine with God, we can put our hand on God's shoulder. Krishna comes and shows these pastimes, these leelas, even in this material realm. Time and again, God keeps descending in this world to show us, to give us a glimpse into what the spiritual world is like. So in the spiritual world, Krishna is the center of all enjoyment in the spiritual world, and everyone is just completely blissful in the spiritual world. Krishna has very wonderful loving exchanges with his devotees in the spiritual world. There's this Leela called Damodar Leela, where once Mother Yashoda. Now in the spiritual world, God also has parents. In fact, now somebody may say, how can God have parents? So, well, the thing is, because God has parents in the spiritual world, because God wants to relish different tastes and different relationships. So, yeah, God has parents in the spiritual realm. Mother Yashoda is there, Nanda Maharaj is there. God has friends also. Then, God engages in all these different types of relationships. They are, in spiritual terminology, they are called rasas. Rasa means juice. So relationships, any relationship, there's some juice associated with that. Husband, wife experience some juice in their relationship. Brother and brother experience some juice. Brother and sister, sister and sister. So all relationships have a juice or a rasa associated with them. So Krishna also is known as Rasa Raj, or a relisher of many tastes and rasas. And because God likes having all these different relationships, loving relationships, because they exist in the spiritual platform, they exist in this world also. It's not that we are superimposing what we see in this world upon God. It is the other way around. Because it exists there, it exists here also. this material realm is like a perverted reflection of the wonderful spiritual relationships that exist on the spiritual platform. So there's this wonderful Leela, Mother Yashoda. Once Krishna was being very naughty, so he broke so many butter pots. So she ran after him, and Krishna, almost as if he is afraid of her, he was running away from her. So some of these leelas of God can bewilder somebody, because when we think that God only means majesty, God only means somebody who gives orders to others. But when we realize that God is Rasraj, or a wonderful relisher of different tastes, then we can appreciate these pastimes, these leelas of God, of Krishna. So one example can make it clearer. Suppose there's a president or a prime minister of some country, and he, in every country, the upmost person is the leader of that country, right? At least for the time being, until he or she is in power. So the first priority given to saving somebody in this country would be Biden. President gets the very first thing, the most important person in the country. So now suppose there's a president or a prime minister. In outside public, he or she is considered the most important person. But suppose the president comes home, and at home, he may have a little granddaughter. She'll make him a horse and sit on him, and he'll ride her. He'll go on his hands and legs, and she may sit on his shoulders, and he'll take her around. Now it may look like, oh, has she become higher than him? What do you think? Sorry, Biden is too old for this. Nice one. That was a good one. But anyways, has she become higher than him? No. From now, there are two perspectives, Tattva and Rasa. Tattva means objective truth, and Rasa means subjective subjectivity that comes in relationships. So from Tattva perspective, nobody is higher than God. God is the supreme personality, and God is the Lord and Master of all living entities. But from Rasa perspective, God sometimes puts various devotees at a higher pedestal than himself. Mother Yashoda, Srimati Radharani, Krishna puts them at a higher pedestal than himself. So from objective perspective, God is always the supreme being. But from Rasa perspective, God puts devotees at a higher pedestal sometimes. So this is how wonderful and sweet our relationship with God is. Now, we have somehow become disconnected from this relationship. How do we revive this relationship? In this material world, people may approach God with different modes. So some people, in fact, there are certain spiritual paths or religions altogether, where the main focus is fearing God, the punishing nature of God, punishing aspect of God. If you don't do this, you will go to hell. God will send you to hell forever. So there are some religions which are primarily focused on the fear aspect. Then, higher than fear, a little higher, a step higher than fear is approaching God with desires or for some benefits. In fact, one example can make it clearer. Suppose a child is approaching. A child should have some fear for parents. Otherwise, the child may go on a wrong path. So some healthy fear is necessary. But if the child is always afraid of parents, let me ask parents here. Who would like, if your child is always afraid of you, would you like it? No, nobody will like it. So similarly, fear, some fear, healthy fear is it's good. It keeps us on the right track, but fear is not the prominent feeling that can really connect us with God intimately. Higher than fear is, now say the child becomes a little mature after growing up. Then the child approaches parents for getting desires fulfilled. In teenage, boys and girls, they have so many desires. They want pocket money, they want a bike, car, whatever. So the children may approach parents with desires, but still not really a great way to have relationships. So there are people who approach God just for some desires and benefits. Go to some temple, break a coconut, God, please pass me in my exams. There's one temple for just for getting visas. Somebody has opened a temple in South India somewhere, just for getting visas. So, huh? Oh, is it? Okay. I see. Yeah. So fear, then desire. Then higher than that, when the child grows a little more, the child may develop some more maturity. Why am I approaching my parents just for some desires? I owe them so much. They have raised me with so much love. So there's a feeling of gratitude and dutiful spirit, basically. It's much higher. So because my parents have done so much for me, I should also do something in return. So that's even higher. So that is duty. Fear, desire, duty, but still there is one platform which is the highest. It goes way beyond duty also. And what could that be? Love. And what kind of love? Selfless and unconditional love. Yeah, no conditions applied. Unconditional love. That is the highest. And when we approach God at this platform, at the platform of unconditional love, right now we may not be at that platform. At least I can say for myself. Maybe some of you may be, but I know for sure I am not. But we can beg the Lord, please help me come to this platform. Let me develop unconditional love for you. And how do we revive our relationship with the Lord? Krishna has given us different paths. In the Bhagavad Gita itself, there are different paths delineated by Krishna. There's Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and then Krishna culminates with the Bhakti Yoga path. So among these different yoga, the word yoga technically means, it comes from the Sanskrit root called yuj, which means to connect. So yoga technically means connecting with God, connecting with the divine. Yoga is not just about some stretching exercises. Those traditionally Ashtanga yogis, when they went to the forest to do yoga, they would sit in asanas and exercises. They bring the mind to a certain level, but then that's not the ultimate goal. That's one intermediate step. So, please take some prasad before you leave. So, yoga means to connect. So, real yoga, it's beyond just asanas and exercises. So, it means connecting with the divine. So, Bhakti Yoga is connecting with God through love, pure unconditional love. That is what Bhakti Yoga is about. But then there are other yogas also which are meant to lead to Bhakti Yoga. So there's Karma Yoga. Krishna talks at great length about karma also, duties in this world. So just acting in this world is called karma. But when we begin acting with detachment, now in Karma Yoga, there are two flavors. One flavor of Karma Yoga is acting with detachment, with a dutiful spirit, not expecting gains in return. There's this famous verse from Bhagavad Gita. Karmanyevadhikaraste. Just someone know further. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma karma phala heturбhuр. Mate sangostu karmani. It's in the second chapter, 47th verse. Krishna talks about, yeah, do your duty, but don't feel entitled to the results. So this is karma yoga, one flavor of karma yoga, working with detachment. But still, God is not in picture here yet. But still, working with detachment in this world also purifies us, uplifts us. It's gradually taking us higher and higher on the ladder. But then a more advanced flavor of karma yoga is acting and offering our results to God. Now, God comes in picture here. So acting for God. The first version was acting for the sake of it, for the sake of duty. But now, acting for the sake of what? For the sake of God, that's a step higher. That gradually can lead one to bhakti or unconditional love.
So what do we have to do differently from what we do today? Like, karma yoga, literally we all have work for a purpose. I mean, how should we approach it differently?
Yeah, wonderful question. I'll just briefly mention something today. Next session, we are going to talk at great length about our actions in this world and yeah, practical details of how can we live in a God conscious spirit in this world. But to briefly address that, yes, whatever we do in this world, our results we can offer to Krishna. Say, for example, our hosts here, Rampriya Prabhu and Mataji, they are living Rampriya Prabhu works for Meta, has a wonderful high-paying job, and but he has made his home into a Krishna conscious or a God conscious home. So yeah, it doesn't mean we have to run away to the forest, leave everything. We just, whatever skills and assets we have, we dovetail them in God's service. So he is raising a wonderful God conscious family. So basically we make our activities God centered. So there are direct activities which are God conscious, and there are indirect or dovetailable activities also. In fact, we can see three types of activities. Activities that are completely to be avoided, like smoking, taking drugs, drinking. Those are considered completely, they are to be avoided, or visiting prostitute, or yeah, those are very degrading activities, completely to be avoided. Second type are dovetailable activities, meaning they can be done with a materialistic spirit or they can be done with a spiritual spirit also. Our job can be like that. It can be done with a heavily materialistic spirit, but it can be spiritualized also. So they are dovetailable activities. And third types of activities are direct activities which help us connect with God, like spiritual practices, chanting of God's holy names, reading the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nam, Roop, Gun, Leela, getting connected with these four aspects of God: God's name, God's form in the temple, which is carved out of different materials. It's not an imaginary form. Some paths think that, oh, this is idol worship, this is worship of false gods. No, it's not idol worship. We use the word deity. Idol is a blasphemous word. We use the word deity, meaning yeah, a form carved out of stone, wood, and so on, but it is carved out in such a way which is in alignment with scriptural descriptions of how God looked when God descended into this world. And then great saints come and request God, Krishna, please come and stay in this beautiful deity form. We want to serve you every day. We want to make offerings to you of food and various loving offerings. We will dress you gorgeously every day. So Nam, Roop, form of the Lord, Gun, qualities of the Lord, which are there in scriptures, how wonderful and loving God is, and Leela of the Lord, wonderful activities of God. So connecting with these aspects of God, they are direct God conscious activities. So when we have some contact with direct God conscious activities, then the middle one, the indirect ones can also be spiritualized. When we have absolutely no connection with the direct line, then the middle one, it tends to slip into the other direction of materialistic side.
So reading
So-
scriptures and Bhagavad Gita, that is Gyan Yoga, is it?
It
What-
can be done in either of these spirits.
Okay.
What is different is Bhakti Yogis also read Bhagavad Gita. Gyan Yoga is specifically about, I was coming to that part now. So Gyan Yoga is another path Krishna has given us, which again, here also there are two, we can see it as two flavors. A flavor without much, without God in picture much, and a flavor with God in picture, which then gradually goes toward Bhakti Yoga. So the flavor without God in picture is about seeing this world with a vision of detachment, and then there's more analytical thinking involved there. Oh, this is not real happiness. Everything here is temporary. There's a sense of detachment that comes by observing this world. Say somebody observes death happening around, then somebody may make some nice philosophical connections out of it, and then may feel some sense of detachment. And then when one reads scriptures, basically Gyan Yoga, one sees this world with a perspective of knowledge, spiritual knowledge as in what is material and temporary versus what is spiritual. But then when God comes into picture here, when that same analytical ability then is applied toward understanding God, then it tends toward Bhakti Yoga. It starts moving toward Bhakti Yoga, the path of unconditional love. Then Ashtanga Yoga is the path of meditation, or just controlling the mind, becoming fully focused. Ashtanga yogis, traditionally, they would go to the forest, spend years meditating. And then as the Ashtanga yogi also grows in that line, goes higher and higher on that ladder, the Ashtanga yogi gets darshan of God in one particular form. And that state is called samadhi, when one is fully focused on the form of Paramatma. And then if the Ashtanga yogi makes further progress, then the Ashtanga yogi can also develop unconditional love and become an unconditional lover of God. So Krishna has given different paths for us to approach him, and the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, even in the canon of Vedic literature, scriptures, they address different categories of people. Those who are at a lower level of consciousness, scriptures will give them some recommendation. Suppose somebody is smoking 60 cigarettes a day, then what will a de-addiction specialist tell that person? Will he or she tell him, come to zero immediately tomorrow? No, the path will be, okay, you are smoking 60, tomorrow onwards smoke 50, okay? Now somebody who doesn't smoke cigarettes at all, when he listens that and takes it out of context, oh, smoking 50 cigarettes is okay. Is that okay? No. That's not what is recommended here. That guy is smoking 60 every day. So for him, smoking 50 is a step ahead. But for somebody who doesn't smoke at all, no, to start smoking 50, it's not at all recommended. It's a degradation. So there are scriptural statements that address different types of people. Somebody who is too attached to, say, eating the flesh of animals, then scriptures may regulate such a person by telling that person, okay, you like to eat flesh, do it in a regulated way. Go to the temple of some demigod like Kali or Kali Mata or someone, and then offer the animal to Kali Mata, chant this mantra in the ears of that animal. And in fact, that mantra, in the past, these were prescribed processes for those who are attached to eating too much flesh of animals. Then that mantra chanted would include words that mean, what I am doing to you, you could also do to me in future. Now, when somebody says that again and again, he'll realize, hey, I'm digging my own grave. Then such a person will gradually rise higher in consciousness. But that doesn't mean somebody who has already risen above that platform should now start doing this kind of offering. So scriptures address different levels of consciousness. Now Arjun is a very elevated personality. So what Krishna is speaking to Arjun, the Bhagavad Gita, it's a very high caliber of scripture. And then the Bhagavad Gita is God's own words. And then Srimad Bhagavatam is about a God. Srimad Bhagavatam is, it's a literature that completely takes one on a journey into unconditional love of God. Personalities who unconditionally loved God. It contains their stories and how they lived in this world, how they acted in this world. So there are scriptures that are meant for beings of higher level of consciousness. So yeah, we really don't have to read everything that's there in the canon of Vedic literature. This Purana, that Purana, or this Upanishad, that Upanishad. Whatever is Krishna himself, he says to Arjun, in if someone is interested, you may refer to verses 2.42 to 46. Just before Karmanyavadhikaraste verse, 2.42 to 46, Krishna is talking about those sections of scriptures which are not recommended for Arjun. Krishna is saying, Arjun, don't look at them, rise above them. Those sections of scriptures, they deal with beings of lower consciousness, but they are not meant for you. You come to a higher standard, come to the standard that I am telling you. So, yeah. For us, the recommended scriptures are Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And yeah, in ISKCON, yeah, we just, if we stick to Gita, Bhagavatam, and then there's another literature which after Bhagavatam you will be able to relate with, called Chaitanya Charitamrita. So yeah, there are scriptural statements that help us, scriptural injunctions that take us closer and closer to God. Now, okay, we are well over time. We'll probably just quickly run through this, and then we'll go in depth in the next session. Actually, almost every session this is happening. Some last portion is rolling over to the next session. So we will have a session, 9th session next weekend, next Friday. So if you are in town, please do join us. So now someone may think that, oh, this material world, this time factor. In this material world, there is a time factor that ultimately frustrates everything, takes away everything from us, almost like it appears like it is cruelly snatching away things that are dear to us from us. So it may appear that this material world is a cruel place. Yeah, at one level it does appear. But if we go deeper, actually, this material creation is also a mercy of God, one form of mercy. And in this material world, Krishna's mercy, God's mercy, comes in 5 ways. And the first one is the worldly pleasures. In one sense, they are a sort of mercy of God, but not his real mercy. It's like we can think of it as, if we understand this term, reluctant sanctioner. What does sanction mean? Sanction, permit something. Okay, sanctioned. And what does reluctantly sanctioning something mean? I'm not willing to, but okay, fine. Have parents ever experienced this? Reluctantly sanctioning some desire of your child. So, yeah, if we understand God, how God also fulfills desires of living entities as a reluctant sanctioner. Living entities who want to enjoy separately from God, okay, fine, you want to enjoy separately from me, I'll create this toy-like setup for you. I'll create certain pleasures for you. you want to live in forgetfulness of me, I'll provide you all facility and all reasoning also to live in forgetfulness of me. And that energy of God that enables living entities to live in forgetfulness of God. What is that called? A famous term. You may have often heard about that energy of God. Maya, yes. So, yeah. So, in one sense, the pleasures that exist in this world, they are one form of mercy of God, although reluctantly sanctioned. God doesn't want us to, but still, in order to enable us to get exhausted of these desires to enjoy separately from Him, God has sanctioned some pleasures. Not just sanctioned, He has given us the whole setup. Otherwise, you see, how can some lump of flesh and bones, when combined together, produce pleasure for both the parties? I'm talking about male and female pleasures in this world. Just some rubbing of skin together produces some pleasure. Is it coming out of nothing? No, somebody has enabled that. Somebody has injected the magic there. And then, yeah, all types of romantic feelings are exchanged through two watery eyeballs. Is it just some chance phenomena? No, there is somebody's hand in this. And then, very mercifully, now we come to a higher form of God's mercy, where these pleasures have been, there's a full stop put to these pleasures. Any pleasure in this world, we see it inevitably has to end, no matter how hard living entities might try to expand it, to continue it, to prolong it. Doesn't happen. One cannot fight the laws of nature. So what is the next thing? Frustrations, the disappointments that happen in this world, they are also God's mercy, a more higher form of God's mercy. They are meant to wake us up. Come on, this is not your real home. Please turn toward me. Come to me. With me, you will enjoy supreme happiness and supreme bliss. Therefore, God has created this world, and just by injecting this one factor, time factor brings something called anityata, means temporariness. Time, that's what time factor is. In the spiritual realm, there's no time factor that brings about destruction of things. But in this material realm, we see time factor is an all-pervasive thing. That's also a mercy of God. This time factor is like a game changer. It makes living entities think, what is really meaningful? Am I really running after meaningful things in this world? So this time factor, it's like a wake-up call. It's a mercy of God. A higher form of mercy than the first one. Now, the next three that are going to come, they are even higher than this. And among them, it's difficult to give any ranking. All three of them are really wonderful, and they are directly connected with God. And what are they? The scriptures that God sends. Scriptures are God's own words. And they are the word of God given to mankind and for the upliftment of living entities. Then God's own descent into this world in the form of avatars. Does someone remember any verses from Bhagavad Gita where there's a famous verse? It used to come at the beginning of this Mahabharata serial, where Krishna talks about. Does someone know the full verse? Yeah. Tadatmanam Sriram. Wonderful. Thank you. So, yeah, that's fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 7th verse. In fact, Krishna begins talking about his descent into this world from 6th verse. 6th verse is Ajopi sanna vyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavam myatmamayaya. time and again I descend into this world by my own internal potency. Krishna is not forced to come like an ordinary baby who comes crying from a mother's womb. Krishna's birth in this world was very divine. And then 7th verse, which you just quoted, Yada Yada Hi Dharmase, Krishna says, time and again I descend to whenever there's decline in dharma and religious principles. And then 8th verse, Krishna says, Paritranaya sadhuna vinachaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yoge yoge. Again, yoge yoge. Every millennium after millennium, I keep coming. Why? To do two things. To vanquish the demoniac forces in this world and to give solace and hope to the saintly. Paritranaya sadhunam, to deliver them. Vinashaya cha dushkritam. And then next verse, Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. Anyone who understands the transcendental divine nature of my coming into this world and my activities in this world, after leaving this body, he or she does not have to come back again. So if we simply understand Krishna's descent in this world 5,000 years ago, how wonderfully Lord Krishna came in this world, how wonderfully he performed Leelas in this world. And all his Leelas are there in Bhagavatam, which we were talking about some time back. It's the original scripture in which, from which we get all stories of Dhruv, Prahlad, and all stories of Lord Krishna. In fact, all other incarnations are also there. Only Lord Ram's story hasn't been covered in Bhagavatam. Shukdev Goswami, the speaker of Bhagavatam, himself says, because it has been covered in detail in Ramayana, I'm not covering it in detail here. So, but other than that, all forms of God are there in Bhagavatam, especially Lord Krishna's pastimes. It's the original text from where we know about Lord Krishna. All comics books derive from this great literature called Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Lord's own wonderful descent. Krishna is saying in the Gita, somebody who understands the divine nature of my coming into this world and acting in this world does not have to take birth again in this world. And then the 5th form, even more than God himself descending into this world, more often than that, God sends pure devotees or great saints who God sends them from the spiritual realm. Okay, can you go and remind all my forgotten children who are living in forgetfulness of me, all my lost lovers, just go and remind them about me. God sends time and again some pure devotees from the spiritual realm who come to this material world and who give the message of God to living entities, who come with a wake-up call. Please, oh dear brother, sister, please wake up. Please turn toward God. So such pure devotees, to be in the company of such pure devotees is a real blessing for us. In fact, just like one drunkard can make another person a drunkard. So similarly, somebody who is madly in love with God can, that is contagious. Association of such devotees who love God, that can infuse us with love of God. The words spoken by such pure devotees have such great effect. Those words penetrate straight into our consciousness and they go deep, they wake us up. They are a wake-up call to us. We have wonderful stories of our founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada. What a caliber of pure devotee he was. He turned so many hippies who are leading such a hedonistic life completely. Hedonism is even more materialistic than materialism. They were leading a completely hedonistic life, but his powerful words penetrated into the cores of their hearts, and so many of them became great devotees of Krishna. Seeing that, someone in India, one actor called Devanand, he made a movie, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna. There he made fun of all ISKCON devotees as if they showed it as like, oh, these ISKCON devotees, they externally show they are devotees of Krishna, but internally they are taking drugs and all that. But later on, when Devanand met Srila Prabhupada, he apologized. Sorry, I completely misunderstood your mission. He was praising Prabhupada later on, and he recognized that Prabhupada is a pure devotee, a true saint, sent by God just to transform the lives of so many living entities. All of us here are together just because of Prabhupada's mercy. What a sacrifice he made for us. So yeah, pure devotees who come to this world are also mercy of God. Okay, I've kept you. There were 2 more slides. We'll continue that in the next session. Okay. So I won't keep you holding from a wonderful, delicious dinner. What we can do is we can start having dinner prasad. Let's disperse for now. We'll take a restroom break or whatever, and we'll come back during dinner. We'll continue our conversation. We can have Q&As or reflections also. So while it is being served, if somebody would like to share some reflection from today's session or bring up some questions, please feel free to do so. After sitting for quite some time, the legs start paining. Thank you, Samant. You were such a good boy. Sorry. Samanyu. Okay. You were so quiet today. Thank you. Oh.
That was the half-hearted sanction that we gave him to. That sanction.
Oh, you practically related.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you were saying next Saturday, we meet again next Friday.
Yes.
And then
Next.
next Sunday will be at the temple, right?
Yeah. So there will be a certificate distribution ceremony. It will be either this Sunday or next Sunday. Most of you have.
Sunday meaning the day after tomorrow?
Yeah, it could potentially be, but most likely it will be next Sunday.
We haven't decided yet.
Yeah, it mainly depends on Vaisheshika Prabhu's availability. He's quite busy actually. He's a traveling preacher, very spiritually advanced soul. He's one form of mercy of God, having a saint like him around us. So in this certificate distribution ceremony, everyone will come to the temple, all of us, and everyone will receive certificates from his hands. Now, a certificate may just look like some external object, but more than the certificate, it's the spirit behind it. Just like marriage is not just about wearing some nice clothes and coming together, just some party or official function. It's about, if you see, parents write on the invitation cards, please come and bless our child. So the real spirit behind marriage is that people come and give blessings to the to-be married couple. And the couple should also be in that spirit. Please bless us so that we can live with each other through thick and thin, lifelong. So similarly, the purpose of such a ceremony, certificate distribution, it's not just the piece of paper, it's the spirit behind it. In front of so many assembled devotees, your effort to participate in this course is being recognized and is being blessed. In front of the deities of Lord Krishna, in front of so many assembled devotees. So it's going to be a lifelong cherishable experience, and it can give a push in your spiritual journey ahead. So please do join us. It will be either.
Will you know whether it will be this Sunday or next Sunday?
Yeah, actually, Sundaranand Prabhu, who was here last week with us, he will be confirming with Vaisheshika Prabhu. Actually, I also don't directly approach him. Yeah, Sundaranand Prabhu is. Sundaranand Prabhu, yeah, who was here last time. Yeah. he will approach Vaisheshika Prabhu. And you will be inspired meeting Vaisheshika Prabhu. What a caliber of devotee he is. So very tall American and spiritually very you'll immediately feel some attraction toward him.
I would
For his-
never ask any spiritual question. I'll be intimidated.
Not at all. He has a regal aura around him.
Someone made a comment that you look very happy, right? He's probably 5 times happier than you. That's how he looks.
Maybe unlimitedly.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. Take it easy.
Okay, thank you for participating.
So on a lighter note, Swapnilji, you know more about parenting and marriage than most of us here. You speak
Just-
with confidence about parenting.
Just speaking from some spiritual perspective. But I personally don't have any experience. Yeah, thank you.
Gone to the ISKCON temple on Sunday. Were you
Oh, is
there?
it?
I met him, Sundar.
Oh, you met him? Okay, okay,
He
yeah.
was there.
I had stepped out for some time and
I
then
don't
came back.
remember his name, what's doing the Kirtan, but he was over there. I met him.
Oh, Govind Prabhu. Okay, okay, wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, see you.
For the holiday?
For holidays, I have no travel plans. as such. I'll be in the Bay Area.
Your family there? in Boston?
Oh, my elder brother lives in New Jersey,
Oh, yeah. Where in Jersey?
in a town called Basking Ridge.
Actually, I have spent a lot of time in Jersey, so I'm very.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice town. Nice.
Is there a
Yeah.
conference there?
Yeah, yeah, in New Jersey. Yeah, there's one in Plainfield.
I don't remember, but I think in the other day that we were there in that San Jose, right?
Mhm.
Actually, New Jersey has a lot of. New Jersey has a lot of temples. We had gone to New Jersey recently, and there's a big, in Robbinsville, Akshardham, big Akshardham temple. There, it's a majestic temple.
Yeah.
Like,
New York also has a temple, ISKCON. That's where the main temple is.
Yeah, New York, in Brooklyn, there's one big temple. Yeah, it's a huge temple.
You've been there?
Yeah, I have been. there.
Akshardham are not.
That's not ISKCON. But yeah.
but I'm just.
Different.
So there are a lot of-
Right,
Yeah,
right.
temples.
New Jersey has more.
I've seen a video of it. Came on WhatsApp.
Where you should go. I mean,
I've
the
been to
the
one-
architecture.
one in the next.
Thank you.
Can I